All right, team, welcome back to the Business Mentorship Podcast. And today we have the amazing Kate Mantello. Now, Kate's a really, really genuine character, and I'm super excited to have her on the business. She's created a mid-six-figure company uh, dealing with energetics and healing modalities uh, long before anybody thought it was cool. So,
I
She's
love
found
that.
she's the founder of the Evolve Healing Institute and Evolve Crystals. You may have heard of her. She's the founder of Transpersonal Crystal Healing, the modality, and she's the author of Rock On, the Crystal Healing Handbook for Spiritual Rebels. She's now an international speaker. She just did an amazing tour around America and spoke all over the place, from small shops up into bigger stages. She's had 20,000 students go through her company and up level their skills. She's got two wonderful kids and a loving husband and chickens. So welcome, Kate. It's amazing to have you on the show. I really love having people on here that have been through the trenches and been doing this for a long time. It's easy to get quick success, and it's easy to get lucky success, but when you're maintaining a business for a period of time, especially in something that's so needed but you love and is also a little bit outside the norm, is no small feat. So welcome, and yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for that stellar introduction, Tyler. I really appreciate it. I had to laugh. You included the chickens. So that's pretty much in a nutshell, I guess, the boxes ticked of what I do. But I guess going more deeply and authentically into that, I help people to heal themselves and then to go on and heal others, because my mission is to contribute to the elevation of consciousness, one healing journey at a time. And healing is a journey. And what you said about the trenches is so true, because sometimes we have this unicorn journey where things work out straight away and everything's amazing and falls into place. And then, we get stuck in the trenches, and healing, true healing, it's not fluffy, it's not woo woo. There's actually a really very grounded, real, and messy aspect to healing. And that's where I actually get off. It's in the trenches, it's in the mess. I like to roll up my sleeves and I'm like, let's get this shit done. And so I guess that's what separated me from a lot of other people in this industry, especially crystal healing, which is a micro niche. It is a very, very micro niche market. So to on one side of the coin, to look at it, you can say, well, it's really hard to be successful in a micro niche, but I always tried to frame it as it's going to be much more accessible to me to strive to become a big fish in a small pond rather than trying to become a big fish in an ocean. And I think that's always been my approach within this micro niche industry. And I guess it's that approach has also helped me to stand out amongst others who are in this industry, because I think that crystal healing can have a lot of like a fluffy association and not very grounded, but there's actually a really solid energetic aspect to crystal healing. And crystals have opened up the door to broader energetics for me. And I'm so far down the rabbit hole, it's not funny when it comes to energetics, and crystals was really just the tip of the iceberg of that journey for me.
Thanks for that, Kate. It's interesting because I believe that when you started crystal healing, it was a micro niche, and people like you probably made the pond a little bit bigger. Because I hear about it a lot. I was at one of our department stores, one of the upper level ones. It was about a year ago, and they actually had amethyst with branding on it in the store for sale. And it was like a Marks and Spencers or like a Myers Grace Brothers or one of those stores. And I was like, oh, interesting, because big brands follow the trends. I
That's right.
feel like people like yourself were at the forefront. Uh,
Well, when I first did my training as a crystal healing practitioner in 2007, so that's going back, what's that, 16 years, is it? Yeah, 16 years ago. And it was just like no one had really ever heard of it. I was attracted to the course I did because part of the training that was offered in the course was Reiki and past life regression therapy. So I'm trained in those modalities as well. And that's what I'd heard of. And that's what attracted me to the training course. Crystals was like, I wanted to check out when the teacher started talking about crystal spirits. I'm like, what's this chick on? But really within the first day of actually experiencing crystals on my body, I was totally transformed from a naysayer into a believer. So I can genuinely and honestly say I came to crystal healing without ever having owned a crystal in my life, without ever seeking it out or intentionally following the path of crystal healing. But as someone who really appreciates a cosmic joke, I've actually become a global spokesperson for crystal healing in this, very funny paradox. So I do laugh at myself and the whole situation a lot because, I was when I first started training, I was that person that was sitting on the couch in military boots and jeans while, the lady in crushed purple velvet was holding crystals and talking about it to this enraptured class. And I'm sitting there scratching my head, thinking, what the hell have I signed up to? And here I am. And I think that's something that I absolutely love about surrender to the journey and surrender to the path is you just don't know what's around the corner for you. And this whole journey and what crystals have brought to my life and to the lives of, as you mentioned, over 20,000 people that have come and studied with me and my awesome team. It's profound work, and it's led me to becoming such a better more leveled up person in all areas of my life. So it's been a real treat of a journey, actually. And yes, what you said is true. I've seen some top speakers and presenters now who have crystals on their desk. And I think even Tony Robbins, wears a crystal around his neck now. And Kylie Jenner's spoken about crystals, and Miranda Kerr. And it's definitely reaching out into the mainstream now.
Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about the journey that you went through, and you touched on. So you just showed up to a class, and one thing that I find interesting about a lot of energetic modalities is historically they were seen as crazy lady, crushed purple hair, wasn't charging very much, and there's this sort of aversion to money and finances around that. Like you don't pay for those things. Those things are, they should be for free. And what that caused for a long period of time is people not seeing value in it. Do you, first off, do you agree with that? That's my opinion. And I'd love to hear how you feel about that.
Yes and no. So I believe in if I do something, I do it to the absolute best of my ability. And you and I were just talking about that prior to coming on live, that, you have the same opinion. When you're serious about something, you don't mess around and you do the best things that you possibly can to get you where you want to be. So I sought out in Australia at the time, there was only one course in all of Australia that was accredited in energy healing for these modalities. So crystal healing being a part of it. One course in all of Australia. And I did that course. And at the time, it was 1,400 Australian dollars. So that's 2007. I was in my mid-20s and I'd never spent that much money on myself in a single transaction for anything other than an international ticket to travel. I hadn't gone to university. So I finished high school and I hit the road basically and lived it up large all over the world for the best part of 7 years or 6 years. And when I returned home, I took a job as a travel agent because that's all I, could think to do at the time because I'd had a lot of travel experience. I hated the job. It was very soul destroying. It was really corporate, which is not me at all. And like many people who are attracted to energy healing, we think we're attracted to the industry because we want to help heal others, which we do. But the truth is that's shadow. Like we really want to heal ourselves. That's what drives that initial enrollment in the industry. And I was no different. I injured my spine. I had spine surgery. I manifested that because I hated this desk job, because the spine surgery meant that I could never work at a desk again for the foreseeable future. So that ended that terrible career. And so I took this plunge. Like, I almost didn't invest because it was this huge amount of money for me back then, and I'd never spent that kind of money. So I think that it was definitely a worthwhile investment. And I do agree with what you're saying. I do think that there's a lot of scarcity mindset in the healing industry and in energy work, because we, as a rule, people who are attracted to the industry come with a baggage. There's damage, there's belief systems that need to be reworked and freed. So as a rule, I think that there's a lot of scarcity and victimized people that are attracted to the healing industry. So I think it definitely is, it does present itself in the industry as a whole. But my personal experience was the opposite. For me, it was an absolute financial leap of faith, because it was more money than I'd ever spent on myself before, and certainly more money than I'd spent on education. I did go on to spend more money on my education, but at the time, like, that was a ceiling that I had not broken through before. So it was an epic transition. And looking back, I have no regrets, obviously, because it launched this career for me. But yeah, it was definitely a leap of financial faith.
Wow. Yeah, thanks for sharing that story. And I think that's actually really inspiring for anybody right now, because people who listen to me are, multiple seven figures, right down to just getting started. And you're a bit of a testament of just getting started in the very beginning, because I'll tell my story of the first time I went to invest into learning how to meditate. And I'd never before, and money, I was earning good money. I was working in mining. I'd never before invested in anything. I thought, I'm going to learn how to meditate. So I bought the Calm app. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's just like
No.
famous actors reading meditations and nice music and stuff. And then I saw this transcendental meditation ad come up on Facebook, and I signed up for it, and I've got the call, and I was like, how much does this cost? Thinking, like, I was honestly thinking about $60. And he's like, yes, it's a 2-day event. It's $1,850. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
what could possibly, and he's like, this, like, and I remember going through that. And now when I have sales calls, I still think about that, about where people are at psychologically, but then more so where society has put us as a whole, based on the being able to value ourselves enough to invest at that time, which was a week's wages for me.
Yeah.
Which doesn't seem crazy now. I'm like, it's a week's wages. Like, you could have just not went out. I would have spent that on 3 nights out.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, just drinking, partying.
Yeah, I absolutely know what you mean. And I think it's also, it's a framework, it's a thought framework around value. And there's a real framework in terms of whether you look at things as a spend or whether you look at things as an invest. And it always comes back to the self, how much you value yourself. Because at the end of the day, and this is speaking specifically to courses and training, at the end of the day, I think people make the mistake of expecting a teacher to teach them or a course to teach them. But we are all responsible for our own learning. So the onus is always on us to learn, right? And often we learn the most from the worst teachers if we apply ourselves to learning from them. So once you shift your mindset into that approach, and you accept responsibility for what you're signing up for, regardless of what the monetary value is, then you are accepting responsibility to turn that investment into a return on investment.
Yeah.
So, and I think once, and that's a scary shift to make. Like, when you're in the mindset of spend and placing and not having the trust that you're going to get the return, because you're placing the trust on someone else to teach you or to give you the product or service. Once you shift that and it's all on you, then you can choose whether you make a return on that investment or not. And once you go into any level of investment now, and You and I are the same now, where we have that mindset. So anytime we invest money, and sometimes I invest money that makes my bottom go like that, it's not an easy investment, but I know that I make that promise to myself. No, it doesn't. If I'm investing 20 grand, I know I'm going to turn it into 120 grand. If I invest 50, then I'm going to turn it into 500 grand, because that's on me. That's not up to anyone else to work that magic. It's only ever up to me. And that's actually been the big shift for me now in terms of investment in anything. It's up to me to get the most out of it. So I think it's a muscle as well. As you get used to strengthening that muscle and you prove yourself right the first time, the second time, and you get that return on investment, not only monetarily, because value is not just monetary, in personal development, in knowledge, in experience. These are all really valuable resources that we have. Health, another really valuable resource. Then we become more comfortable investing more in ourselves.
It's a really interesting topic because I watch a lot of Facebook group threads. I read a lot of LinkedIn forums, and a big thing this year has been, and I've also had a lot of people come to me, like coaches, mentors, and clients, either previous clients or current clients, saying with an issue exactly what you're talking about people investing in them on payment plans, or people investing in them wanting full refunds after doing 70% of the work. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts about it, and I'll share mine around. I feel like we've really been let down on our ability to learn and implement. I feel like the schooling system currently has created, like, because it has to come from somewhere. Because I know people who aren't like that from their childhood, like not from birth. There's a bit of nature and nurture in there, but then you have natural born entrepreneurs. But that's not normal for human behavior, but it seems so systemic of, oh, this is a really big deal that I'm paying this money to get this skill that's going to make me this money. And more importantly, the negative emotion that's brought around, or the trauma it brings up when they don't do the work that's involved in the course or the program or the coaching, whatever it is they're doing. And it'd just be the same as if you bought systems for your business and didn't use them.
Yes.
They don't do the work for it, and they come back and say it didn't work. I'd just love to hear your views on that. It's a really interesting dynamic, and it's very alive at the moment.
That's a really good topic for discussion. And I do absolutely agree with you. And I think it is a systemic thing. And I think humans, modern day humans, and certainly I can't speak to other cultures because I haven't been raised in other cultures. So I don't know what the experience is, say, for someone living in, Africa or Asia compared to someone living in the Western world like Australia. So all I can speak to is that, but I do believe in our society, as someone who's come through the educational system and has children in the education system, and I've tried to make really conscious choices about which schooling and which philosophy is going to best serve that aspect of growth within them. I think we've been very successfully trained to be very disempowered, not only in terms of our own ability to learn and activate information that we receive and activate it into something that is more potent than when we receive it. But I think we've been really successfully trained to be disempowered with all areas, with our health, with our information, even with driving. We just got back from this big trip and we did a lot of driving through Mexico in mega cities, Mexican metropolis mega cities. And my husband did all the driving. I just sat there looking around, kind of calling out the potential accidents that were awaiting. But it was just a mess, but everything flowed organically. It was that beautiful flow of organized chaos. Whereas here, everything, we are told what to do, when to do it. As soon as something is uncomfortable in our lives, we go outside of ourselves for a reprieve. We go outside of ourselves for a pill, for an answer, for entertainment, so we don't have to feel the discomfort. So I think it's a systemic thing, but I think it transcends just the education system. I think it's in all the pillar institutions of our society. It's in politics, it's in healthcare, it's in media, it's in education. And I do think it's intentional. I do think that a population that is disempowered is a population that's a lot more compliant. It's a lot more, I guess, non-confrontational and easier to control. That may sound a little bit, what's the word? Cynical, but I do believe that is the case.
Have you ever heard of Margaret Thatcher?
I know Margaret Thatcher, yeah.
She does a wonderful speech. A government that gives everything to you will eventually take everything from you. It's one of her quotes.
Perfect. That's exactly it. We bit by bit, piece by piece, we are handing over our sovereignty and our initiative, our empowerment. So yeah, I think it's really important that on a grassroots level, and I guess that starts at the home and then flows into primary schooling and then high schooling, that we're really trying to empower our children, let them fight their own battles, let them develop initiative, critical thinking, not be raised in this do as I say, not as I do kind of household where they're taught to obey authority without question, even though authority is doing something else, different to what they're teaching. And so it does start at the home, and it flows into the school and the education system. So kids definitely being taught, or have been taught historically, to be cogs in the wheel, spokes in the wheel. What's the saying? Cogs in the machine, spokes in the wheel of society. Is that it?
Cogs in the machine. The machine needs wheels as well.
That's it. They're not taught to be free thinking, successful entrepreneurs. Otherwise, they'd be taught how to grow their own food, how to invest money and grow wealth, how to be entrepreneurial and be resilient. But they're not taught any of that stuff.
Yeah, I've lived in Thailand and Cambodia, and I spent some time in Spain. And I saw a similar experience there, but there isn't this sense of people coming to say it's not like someone's going to save you. The family sticks together, but if you do something wrong or something doesn't work out, it's kind of on you in a country with less infrastructure, third world country. But it does create more sustainable people if they had the wealth there. And it brings me to a lot of immigrants who move to Western countries and they look around and they go, I can work 3 jobs. Like I can't even get one where I'm from, and they go work 3 jobs and buy a house in a year.
That's right.
Because they don't have that mentality. And then people who are brought through a culture, and there's a really great, he's not a proper historian, but I love this guy. His name's Dan Carlin. He talks about the boy in the pixie slippers coming down the stairs of the castle always loses to the man in the leather boots. And then he goes on to talk about if we were to fight a war with our grandparents with the same weaponry, then we wouldn't even come close. Like we don't even have a chance. So it's a really interesting topic, and I feel like that also creates a lot of what you then have to come through as a facilitator and train people on healing through energetics. Past life regression is an amazing modality if it's done by the right people, and then later heal that. So it's great for your business, but it's also great for society.
It is. And look, my way of teaching is actually, I like to think, I hope, and the intention is that it's very empowering, because I believe we are all teachers and we are all students. And so even though I may be in the teacher role in teaching a course, I'm learning from my students as well. I am still a student and they are my teachers, and so vice versa. So that first and foremost, that's my philosophy when it comes to the teacher-student exchange. The second thing is I don't believe, and this is why my book is called Rock On, the Crystal Healing Handbook for Spiritual Rebels. When it comes to energy is as unique as anything else. Our taste buds, the way we experience sound, we're all really unique individuals, and our sensory experience of the world is going to be different to the next person. And I have a real problem when I read books, especially in energetics, because there's a lot of ego in the industry of healing and energetics. And people are very adamant that this is the way. If you're doing it this way, then you're wrong. If you have this belief, then you're wrong. This is the truth. This is the belief. This is the method. And this is why I'm a little bit of a rebel, because no one likes being told what to do. And that's like saying to someone, well, you have a taste experience of chicken this way. Well, that's the wrong way to taste chicken. You're not supposed to taste it that way. This is how it's supposed to taste. And energies, it's a feeling, a sensory experience. It's an embodied experience. So it's never going to be the same for you as for someone else. So the second part of my philosophy is to teach that from the very first day to my students is this information is here to guide you. Take it and leave it as you see fit. There are definitely some guidelines to adhere to in terms of client safety, for example, and abiding by laws and things like that. But as far as how you receive energy, feel energy, how your intuition speaks to you, I cannot tell you that. I can show you how to connect with what's already innate inside you. I can help open your consciousness and receptivity to that. But as soon as, from an energetic perspective, as soon as you're in that healing room and you're questioning, is this the right technique? Am I doing it correctly? Should I be doing this? You are out of heart space and you are in head space. And that's not where healing comes from. Healing doesn't come from the mind and from structure and analytics. It comes from feeling, it comes from attunement, it comes from intuition, and the mind needs to be silenced for that to happen and to come through. So I'm actually really passionate about that, because we all have this ability inside ourselves. It just needs to be activated. It just needs to be awakened.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, because it led me to something that I was really interested in knowing about you, and that was, what do you feel is the most important part of your business? So I really appreciate you sharing that. And I think honoring the sovereignty of every single human for any business, whether you're selling cakes or energy healing or crystals, it's actually looking at people as individuals rather than a whole. Makes it difficult for marketing, but it's still possible.
It is still possible. And look, at the end of the day, there's going to be people, this goes for everyone in business, there's going to be people that listen to this or read my book and go, oh, I love this chick. And then there's others that are going to go, I hate this chick. And I'm okay with that, because I'm not here to help everybody or connect with everybody. None of us are. We're only here to, like attracts like, right? There's an attraction law. We gravitate towards that which speaks to us. And so as long as I'm connecting with those people and we are helping to raise each other up and expand each other and grow together, then that's my tribe. I'm okay with not reaching everybody and delivering alienating marketing.
Yeah, I think it's polarization is a really important part of everything. So in my opinion, you're pretty successful, and not just financially, but as a person, the way you live your life. I think it's something that a lot of people would look up to. You've got a beautiful home, you're connected to your family, you can see deeper into society, and you hold opinions, which is something that's quite rare. I speak to a lot of people, and opinions are normally hard to get out because of the fear of, I guess, upsetting the apple cart. What do you think it is that is crucial to be successful as an entrepreneur? Like, what's some of the things that you're like, if you don't have this, like, there's plenty of jobs out there.
Yeah, wow, that's such a big question. Look, I think, first of all, I think you have to be willing to push. You have to be answerable to yourself. You have to hold yourself to account, because any life journey is not without hardship and challenge. And the entrepreneurial journey, interestingly enough, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this, Tyler. For me, I found that my journey of entrepreneurship has been the deepest spiritual journey of my life. Because when you are an entrepreneur and you're putting something of yourself out into the world, it is a manifested part of you, of your soul. It's a representation to a degree of a part of your soul. And so as that entity that you've extracted and put out goes on its journey, it highlights and mirrors gaps within yourself, and areas for personal development within yourself. So I think that has the ability to be able to learn from that and take on board the depth of that relationship between my offering, my entities that I put into the world, and myself as a spiritual sovereign being has been integral to becoming successful to a degree, because I think this goes for all entrepreneurs. I think if you apply yourself as passionately to self-improvement, if you apply yourself passionately to self-improvement, then that can't help but flow into your business because it's an extension of yourself. And there's this fantastic quote by oh gosh, what's his name? What was Tony Robbins' mentor's name? I was listening to his podcast. Jim Rohn.
That's it.
Jim Rohn was talking about his mentor who'd said to increase your value, work harder on yourself than you do at your job. And so I think in terms of success in entrepreneurism, it's that understanding that any piece of work you do on yourself is going to improve your business and flow through to your business. So you have to be prepared to work on yourself. That's the first thing. And the second thing I think is that is resilience and innovation, because the market's constantly changing and you do inevitably get rejections and things don't go to plan, and you do have to be very resilient, and you do have to know when to innovate and when to stop innovating as well, I think, in successful business. Because sometimes you can put out too much too quickly, and other times you don't know when to shift, when the marketplace is shifting and you get left behind.
I call it you don't live on the Gold Coast. There's a lot of entrepreneurs and coaches and course creators and people who start stores here, but I call it the business and course graveyard of the Gold Coast. There's lots and lots of dead and buried businesses that are sort of floating around in people's cupboards. But I feel really connected to what you said, definitely, about the journey. I think this is the biggest spiritual experience that you can have, and to break 10,000 a month monthly for a couple of months in a row sounds amazing for most people. They're like, that's incredible. And it's also some of the hardest months that you'll have to work that out. And then when you can maintain it, it feels really good. When you start getting up, it gets easier the more you make, because money can make little nuances go away. That's nice.
Yes.
Be able to pay someone to do stuff.
Yes.
So it does get easier, but then as your goals increase, and it's a bit of a psychotic thing that entrepreneurs have. And I believe if you don't have this, then set yourself up for a consistent business that's going to be like, I want to make this much this time, and then set yourself up your runway in your retirement. But most entrepreneurs that I speak to that have got that spark, they're going to the moon. There isn't a number. They just want to do shit. We put numbers on it so we can go, we got there, but you just want to do stuff. Doesn't matter what it is. So
I think it's very much tied in with your purpose as well. And I think of it as you just don't feel a need to want to do something. You are compelled to do it. It is a compulsion. It's a calling. It is, you cannot breathe unless you birth this thing and bring it to the world. And I think that is true purpose. That is a calling. And I think there's different types of entrepreneurs, and there are some entrepreneurs who are in the game because they just want to make shitloads of money, and power to them, because a lot of them do that. But I think any gaps, as I mentioned earlier, any gaps within themselves that need healing will soon be reflected back to them by that business. And then there's other entrepreneurs who fall into it. Myself is in the second category, because you are absolutely compelled to bring an offering into the world, and it is part of your greater purpose. And sometimes one of the hardest things is actually accepting that. Sometimes one of the hardest things is leaving the cushy day job that pays the bills and standing up and honoring that call and saying, okay, I'm here. Let's do this. That's really hard because it means getting very uncomfortable. It means taking a risk, and it means doing something that is going to consume your world.
Yeah, the consuming thing's very relevant. I spoke to a group of guys a couple of weeks ago. We were all talking around persistence, and I said, and I think this is one of the reasons why I'm so successful. My entire day is built of me talking to myself in my head saying, I don't want to do shit. Like, I don't want to go on Facebook. I don't want to
Yeah, I know.
record content.
Social media.
I don't want to do the invoicing. I don't want to go through and do the books. Like all the little things that I don't want to do. And letting my ego, like just fully honoring that, being like, like just not being like, I can't speak. Like, I'm like, I don't want to do this. And then still doing it and then enjoying it. And I think the other thing is like, it's not a blissful journey all the time. It's actually quite messy. But then you get these moments of like you can afford a nice updated new car, and you're like, oh, that's nice. Or you want something around the house, and you just get in the car and you drive out and you buy it. Or you go, you know what, I don't feel like doing anything today actually. And you just move all your sessions and meetings and you do it the next day. And I think those are the things that you can't do all the time, obviously, until you're generating big income, and you can't just put everything off time-wise, but then you can buy things. But those are the things that make it all worth it. It's like, okay, so what ease of life do I want? That's at the very core of my ego. And I strongly believe that people do you remember the kill the ego phrase that went around? It's like, I just want to kill my ego. And I never understood it. Anyway, this was about 7 years ago. I researched more around the ego, and nothing I could find from any major religion talked that it was possible. I'm like, why are people wanting to kill this part of themselves? And then I was like, okay, I'm going to go through a process of honoring it, but not listening to it. And that's been the most successful thing I've ever done. Still every now and then. It gets me.
Look, ego is a wonderful teacher. It's one of those instances where something that isn't necessarily, of a higher good is actually one of your greatest teachers. Because we can't evolve as an individual, as a being, without developing the skills of commitment and self-control and persistence and all of these things. And ego is a really important part of that journey. I grew up in scarcity and with a single mom. We never had any money, and it was just, low-level jobs, and all our stuff was secondhand. And I didn't even, wealth wasn't even in my sphere. It wasn't even in my universe. And so I never saved money through my 20s. I never earned a lot of money because it wasn't a possibility or reality for me. Therefore, it wasn't manifested physically because it wasn't inside me. And it wasn't until my mid-30s that I actually, or, just before my mid-30s, maybe around 33, where I actually went, you know what? I think I'd like to have more money. That was 10 years ago, just 10 years ago. And the journey that I went through with the money and the wealth thing to get to where I am has been profound. And that a lot of that was ego-led, because it was death of ego. It was the desire of ego, things, nice things. I can buy 1,000 thread count sheets finally. It was all that stuff. And the irony of this is when I did my first $20,000 month, that night when I realized I'd done a $20,000 month, this is going back maybe 4 years. I laid in bed and sobbed my eyes out, like happy tears, but I was like, all the ugly crying. I couldn't believe it that I had earned that much money. That's more money than I may as well have won $20 million in the lottery. I just couldn't even comprehend it. And then within another 18 months, I'd done $500,000 year. But ego was still there, and I hadn't built up the frequency within myself, and that I hadn't worked on myself enough to hold that wealth in a healthy, positive way. And when I was earning 500K, I was actually becoming more scarce than when I'd been earning 300K. Like that night, I sobbed my eyes out because I earned $20,000. I think the most I've earned in a month so far is $70,000. And I was like, why, then I'd earn $50,000. I'm like, 50,000, where's,
Where's my
$50,000. I only earned $50,000 this month. Oh, what am I going to do? It's like, get it together. When I had the $20,000 month, I felt like I was the richest person in the world. And that's why abundance kept growing, because I was appreciating that wealth. And then the ego came in and I lost the appreciation. I bought the things, and now I'm gratefully was knocked off my throne, and really was able to go back and heal those money wounds within myself, so that as I continue to grow and become a 7-figure business, I can actually hold that money and that wealth with true appreciation and no scarcity, and with the respect and reverence it deserves.
Yeah, I really love those words of respect and reverence, and holding the money. It's that's something that I feel to break the current ceilings I see for everybody is the 500,000.
Yeah.
And then it feels like the next one's 1 million. There's nothing really
Yes.
in between. So that's
Yes.
exciting. And when you have that much money, it seems more seems to go out the window, and that would sound crazy from somebody who's in the micro business under 6 figures, but it costs a lot of money to run a bigger business, and there's a lot more
It does.
parts.
And there's always that plateau, as an entrepreneur, when you're doing everything yourself, there's the fast ascent, and then you get as far as you can without outsourcing and starting to spend serious money on infrastructure and systems. And then you do the plateau as you're spending money, and then you do the ascent again as that those investments start to pay off. And it's this constant, journey.
Head towards your goals and fail to your systems.
Yes, that's right.
All right, it's been awesome having you on, Kate. I really, really appreciate the chats, and I want to do more of these as you grow. When you hit 7 figures, we'll definitely celebrate together. But just before we go, is there anything else that you'd love to share with anybody who's listening that could really, really benefit them?
I think all I would like to say to anyone is, it doesn't matter what your interest in is and who you are as a person. I've made this work from crystal healing. Crystal healing. It's such an obscure little corner of the universe. So it doesn't matter what your interest is, what your personal gift and alchemy is. You can bring it to the world, and you can create something magnificent out of it that really changes lives. Yeah, never be deterred.
Well, you heard it here, guys. Check out Kate. She's got an amazing book. I'll put the links in the chat. I'll also put the link to her social media and her website in there. If you've ever thought about delving deeper into the modality of crystal healing, or just learning a bit more about her book, check it out. It's definitely worth it. She's walked the walk, and I'm sure that you'll learn a lot from her.
Thank you, Tyler. It's been amazing. Thank you so much for the opportunity.